Good afternoon and welcome to this afternoon's law webinar with Abi. Please be aware this session is being recorded and the recording will be sent to you tomorrow along with any other material shared today. Please ensure you have selected everyone as the recipient in the chat box and feel free to type in questions as the session is running. Abi will answer your questions as and when she can. Please unmute your microphone to ask questions throughout the presentation. I must make you aware that you are not allowed to share the resources outside of the centre as this is a breach of the terms and conditions set out by Hodder Education. I hope you enjoy the webinar, and if you have any problems, please put them in the chat box to me. Thanks, and over to you, Abi.
Okay, thank you. Hello, everybody. My name is Abi Adeboyejo. My full name is Abiola, but everybody calls me Abi. So Abi it is for today. This is an interactive webinar workshop, and we're going to be looking at how to overcome barriers that Black students tend to face, particularly those who are studying A-level law. It's a very unique workshop, and when I was approached by Hodder to deliver it, I thought it was quite interesting that it had already been identified by them that certain groups of students struggled to do well in certain subjects, which then led to a reduced number of such students qualifying to practice law. So without much ado, I'll just tell you a bit about myself. So my name is Abi, as I said. I am an A-level law teacher at the moment. I've been I've been a law lecturer at undergraduate level. I'm also the founder of the Tiber Lawyer Mentoring Program. And my educational background, I have a degree in law and I qualified as a barrister and solicitor in Nigeria in 2000, which is a long time ago. But I've been teaching law for the past 17 years in the UK. So this afternoon, I'm going to provide some practical tips, guidance, and resources to support you. And hopefully we can discuss some of the issues that we've identified and how we think we can solve these problems. And I will give you tips to help, things that I've done in the past and things that I know that other colleagues have done in the past to help students overcome barriers. Some of the tips will be applicable to all students, not necessarily just not only Black students, but some are specific to Black students and sometimes even to students from ethnic minority backgrounds. So just to kind of know who's here and what you do, if you could unmute yourself, it might be easiest for you to unmute yourself, but I know some you might not be in an environment where you can talk, but if you could put in the chat, I've seen your names and I think everybody's got their name here. But could you tell me what you do? Do you teach law? Are you head of law? Are you managing a department, and law is one of the subjects? Is it a sixth form? Is it a college? Could you just put it in the chat so I can see who we've got? Thank you. Or if you want to unmute yourself, you can do so. So I've got the message box up so that I can see sorry, that's gone beyond where it's supposed to be. Okay, hello Tina, you teach A-level in sixth form, you're the only law lecturer. Okay, or law teacher. Okay, thank you. Welcome, Tina. I used to teach at a sixth form where I was the only law lecturer. It was good because I had control of everything I did, but the problem with it was sometimes I needed to bounce ideas off other people and there was no one to do that with. So I wonder what you think of being the A-level law lecturer. Okay. Greg, hello, Greg. A-level and GCSE, you now produce online resources and you do some online tutoring. Wonderful. You need to tell us about your resources because we always want resources in law. Well, I'll speak for myself. I never say no to resources. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Greg. All right. Yeah, Tina. Yeah, I do think it's good for us to meet up and talk about things that affect our students. Josh, you've been teaching for 3 years. Okay, working in charity law, you teach BTech law year 1 and A-level law year 1, 4 classes. Oh, wow. How are you finding that? but I'm sure it's, you know, yeah, you're finding it good. Okay, great. Okay. And I think so far that's everybody done. Just going to check and see if we have anybody else. I think that's everybody done for now. Okay. All right, welcome everyone. And thank you for introducing yourselves. We kind of all teach at the same level, so we know what we have when it comes to what our students can do and what they can't do. The slide will work. So basically, quick run through of what we're going to do today. I'm going to spend the first session, segment of this session, talking about the barriers, how we identify them, and how we assess our students to find out what those barriers are, and how we can start to engage them to overcome the barriers. And then we'll take a 5-minute break if you want. If you want us to carry on, we can. But if you want a 5-minute break, we'll take one between 4:45 and 5. And then we'll talk about the role of agencies and talk about enrichment and supporting and raising aspiration. And we're going to talk about the problems in the legal profession. Please don't hold back when we get to this section, because I'd like it to be interactive. There are so many changes so many changes in the legal profession at the moment that giving students good advice from the get-go really matters, because some of them get discouraged because when they're halfway through and they find out that it's not what they thought it was going to be, then it just kind of just falls down flat. So we'll do all of that, and I will expand as we go on. So let's get ourselves thinking and discussing. First of all, if you could put in the chat what barriers you've noticed with your students. So I'm guessing that you have students from ethnic minority backgrounds, and you have Black students. I'll use myself as an example. I've taught it in different colleges, but my current college is very diverse. So we have quite a number of Black students. We have quite a number of Asian students, and actually we have from the last thing the principal said, we have quite an even distribution. So about 33% Black, 33% Asian, 33% white. But what we find is that when it's enrollment time, we have quite a number of Asian and Black students enrolled to study law. But then by the end of the period where they can actually decide to drop the subject and pick another one, which is after the 42 days. I don't know if you guys have the 42 days cutoff point after enrollment in September. Quite a few of the Black students would have dropped. And for those who continue, not many of them actually succeed at the end of the academic year in their first year. And if they go on to the second year, they don't finish with very good grades. So what barriers have you noticed? Anything in the chat box? What do you think? What have you noticed that you think is stopping your students from achieving, or you think, well, maybe that should have been done better, or whatever it is? Anything you've noticed? Oh, the chat is very quiet. I'm guessing people are typing.
Could I say something, Abby?
Yes, go on, please.
I find it mostly amongst the Black lads that they tend to be very enthusiastic about the subject, and then become quite disappointed by the fact that it really does require quite a lot of effort on their part to be good at it. You know, they'll be very good at applying the law in the classroom, but not so good at going away and learning the law so that they can apply it later. That tends to be one of the barriers. And I hope that's the type of thing you're looking for.
Yes, it's exactly what I'm looking for. I've had students who have been honestly, as soon as we start, what they want is, are we going to have debates? Are we going to, argue? That's what the word they use. I love arguing. And you're thinking, well, it's a lot more than just arguing. So sometimes it's them not understanding what is required. So they watch TV programs and they think, oh, it's all about standing up in court. But of course we know it's not. So yes, that is, and I think I would kind of put that down to lack of information from the get-go, and we're going to address this later on. And Tina, you said is the level of engagement. I think it's along the same lines. Where is it that they don't they're not committed enough to the work? Kind of what Greg just said, that they like the fancy side of it, but they don't realize that they have to do a lot of work. Is that what you mean, Tina? Yes, right. Okay. Yeah, quite right. And I think, unfortunately, this not only applies to Black students, but it applies to most of them in general. For those of us who teach law, what I'm sure we all know applies to many. Yeah. What we all know is that, particularly the we know how competitive the legal profession is, and if you're not a subject specialist teaching it, students tend to get a very raw deal when it comes to information, because in many cases they think it's just like, oh, I'll get a law degree and I'll be a lawyer. You know, when they start saying things like that, you realize, oh no, this is not going to end well. And this is a problem that many Black students have, particularly because they don't know anyone who's actually practicing law, which all boils down to the fact that although the SRA in their last survey said that there were about 17% of solicitors from ethnic minority backgrounds, less than 2% were actually Black, which is not a representation of the community or the society we live in, which shows us that there's a big problem there. So, how did you go? How's that gone now? So the thing that the next thing I want us to talk about or to think about is how we then identify those barriers. Some we know straight away, which is them not wanting to do the work. But these are some of the things that we have discussed at different briefings as to what can help or how to identify the barriers, particularly for Black students early on. So when they start, sorry, I think there's someone in the chat. Okay, yeah. However, the level of is much less. I notice a lot of daydreaming and dragging feet to complete any work. Yes. This could just be you talking about my students, Tina. Exactly. And thanks for that. Yeah. They don't want to do much work. Yeah. Yes, you're quite right. So to identify the barriers, these are a few things that we can do to make sure that from the get-go, when they start either doing applied law or A-level law, from the get-go, we set the scene, we get them to understand. And I know this might be something you already do, so please forgive me if I'm kind of repeating what you already do. But sometimes we automatically assume, because we always have to remember, particularly those that want to study law, what I tend to do is that when our students do their initial assessments, I always ask the question, what are your career plans? And for those who identify a career in law, they then get extra information, because those are the ones that tend to need to know straight away how hard not only A-level law is going to be, but how hard it's going to be for them to actually qualify into the legal profession. So initial assessment questions should actually include career aspirations. I know many sixth forms and colleges will do careers talks, you know, through their tutorial programs and so on, but to help students. And the reason this is particularly important for Black students is that it boils down to the fact that majority of them have no role models in law. So they don't have uncles or aunties or anyone that they can sit down with and talk to and say, so how did you qualify in law? What did you do? What, you know, so they don't have that information. And at 16, let's be honest, they won't look for the information themselves. So they're relying on us to give them that information early on, so that I have students who drop law within the first week or two once we do this, and I start telling them about how to qualify. They say, oh, I want to be a solicitor, and I start telling them about used to be the LPC, now I tell them about the SRA, the qualifying work experience. They're like, so it's going to take me like 6-7 years. Oh, I don't think I want to do that. Well, that's fine, but at least it's not their aspirations being killed, if you like, halfway down the line. And for those who want to do it, then they continue. Also, we need to consider their choice of A-level and BTech subjects. Again, for these students, some of them, I know you can do, you don't have to do A-level law to study law. We all know that. But sometimes their choice of subjects might suggest to us that if they really do want to study law, it might not be the best, their combination might not be the best for them. All we can do is advise them, because we know they're going to do what they want to do. But again, for those who want to study law at uni, there should be a bit more target towards, and I will say this, humanities subjects. Some will say, well, it's fine, you can do a science and 2 humanities and so on. For very strong students, they can do 2 sciences and a humanities and they'll be fine. But when we're talking about students who are relatively just, average students, then actually being very intentional about the subjects they pick will help them. So if they choose 3 humanities subjects and they start to develop their writing skills, essay writing skills, analytical skills, and so on, because they're doing the skills needed in those subjects are very similar, then it helps them to achieve the kind of grades they're going to need to go off to study law. And some will decide, oh, I did really well in geography, so I'm going to do geography, that's fine. Oh yes, but at GCSE, I also did incredibly well in chemistry, so I'm going to do chemistry. And you're thinking, okay, that's fine. And then they pick another random subject. If they are A-grade students, that would work. If they're not, then we need to kind of guide them to choose subjects that will help them to develop the skill that they don't have. Also, I've kind of talked about this, the third point, their performance in the humanities subjects at GCSE. If they haven't done particularly well in their humanities subjects that require a lot of essay writing, this might be an indication that the subjects they're choosing at A-level will not work well, or they might lose interest with time. So that again feeds into helping them when you're doing the initial assessment in the first week or so, once they start with us in September, that we identify what's going to help them. Again, all of it is, advice and giving them guidance. They're going to go ahead and do whatever they want. But if we get it right from the get-go, chances are that those students will stay on and not drop out before 42 days or at the end of their first year. And then I think someone mentioned about skills earlier, when that they're very good in class and they can talk and everything. But I think that's something that if they are very chatty, they have the skills to become a lawyer. And again, trying to explain to them that, their unique selling point is their personality. It doesn't have to be a chatty personality. There are barristers who are incredibly reserved, and that is what, that's what gets them their clients, because they seem incredibly approachable, incredibly lovely. But then you go into court and you have to face them, and then wham, they will just, sting, because, they kind of suck you in with their niceness. And so skills that they think they need are usually not the skills that they need. So it's making sure that they don't focus too much on their being chatty or having an answer to everything. That probably it might be an asset, but it might also not be. So it really doesn't matter that much. And start to point them into the direction of looking for information about the legal profession in general. I know that's hard, because at that age, again, at 16, some of them won't even do any research if you ask them to do so. But I've found that with law students, and particularly Black law students, who usually have no idea, apart from watching Suits and other legal dramas on TV, sometimes it's necessary to give them links and say, go read up on that and go read up on that. Not too many, 2 or 3, so that they start to get their heads around what they're going to need to do to succeed in law. I think we have a few comments in the chat, and I'm just going to pause here and have a quick look. Okay, yeah, all right. Josh has said, yeah, he has more Black students in BTech. And yes, that's true. Deprived areas of the society. I know this from, yes, generally they achieve lower grades. Yeah, and you have lower engagement with the boys than with the girls. Yes, everything, yes. And Tina's agreed, yes, okay. this is exactly what I've seen at my sixth form as well. That's exactly, we have more Black students on the applied subjects, mainly because they haven't done so well at GCSE. But if we engage, if we do some of these things, or you use these tips that I've just suggested to identify their barriers and kind of start to show them the way from the get-go, even those doing applied law can still end up getting better grades once they are determined to do well. My college, my department, we do a lot of enrichment activities, and we try to do them early on in the year. We've got awards for doing that. And the main reason we do it is to inspire them, so that once they see where the degree, their A-levels and their degree in law is going to take them, they start to work harder. But we'll talk about those points later. Also, when it comes to performance, which just feeds into the comment I've just read now, sorry, who said, let me just check the chat again. Yeah, Josh, you said about their performance, not doing so well. Yeah, I know we all do this, so pardon me for putting the first bullet point. So in year one, give constructive and positive feedback. But I think, to be honest, as far as you can, the positive feedback should be like proper, how can I say this nicely? Should be firm as well, should kind of tell them this is not going to cut it, because for some of them, I know that we have targets and the schools want them all to do well. They all have to pass, especially if it's an applied subject, give them all the support possible and so on, bar writing the exam for them. But the honest truth is that if they are weak, it's best for them to know that what the standard of what they're producing is not good enough. But then when they do well, to really shout out and give them a lot of praise. What we do in my department, and what I've implemented, is making sure that, particularly for the A-level students, they start off with a lot of extended reading and writing tasks. And every time they get homework where sometimes they have to read a whole chapter and make précis notes, and they start to complain, oh, why do we have to do this, miss, and so on. And I say to them, those of you who want to study law, you're going to be doing this at university. And guess what? When you qualify as a solicitor, this is going to be something you do on a regular basis. So for some of them, they will go ahead and do it and think, well, I need to do this. For some, it's time to drop out. But it's always good to give them that information. Some will see it, and once they get their heads around the work, they will start to do it. But quite a few will drop out at that point, which is fine. The whole purpose is to make sure that for those who actually do want to carry on with law, because law is not for everybody, that they have the best information and that they're able to work hard enough to get there. What we're trying to avoid is a situation where they finish their 2 years at college and then get a rubbish grade, so that they can't go off to uni to study law. Or even if they do start a law degree, some of them drop out and don't qualify. And then for those who actually get a law degree, some won't qualify as a solicitor or barrister, not because they've chosen to do something else, but because they've just got no motivation and they think it's not for them because they can't see anybody who looks like them, who's gone through the rigorous process of being selected to do a vacation schema or an internship and a training contract and so on. So what I would suggest also, the third one, and which we also do, is I know for all A-level exam boards, AQA, OCR, and EDUCAS, there is the topic, the legal profession. Can you give me a thumbs up if that's true? Because I've taught the three, and I know that they all do the legal profession. Usually part of your paper one, or thumbs up, anyone? The legal profession, the topic. Oops, gone far. Yeah, Josh, yeah. Okay, I've got something in the chat. Yes, okay, thank you. Yeah, so what we try to do is try to do that topic as early as possible. There's and you know, I know we're all law teachers, so and I'm guessing we all do this. You know, we always go through the parliamentary lawmaking, going through all of that, but we try to kind of move the legal profession move it as early as possible. If yes, okay, Tina's got that as well. Yeah, thank you. And when we actually do cover the topic, the legal profession, we try to kind of give a bit more time to it. So one of the ways we do it is we get particularly, remember we've got the initial assessment, so we know the ones who want to study law. Those are the ones who would, in many cases, will have to do a presentation on how to become a solicitor, or the barriers affecting qualifying in the legal profession, so that they get to start to understand about the costs, about the timing, get them to do research about, even though this is not on the spec though, get them to do research about qualifying through the apprenticeship route and through the degree route. Sometimes you get them to do a table where they do the qualifying route for barristers and solicitors, and they look at the different routes and so on. But the particular focus will be on those who want to study law at uni. Now, we don't particularly narrow it down to the Black students, but all students who want to study law at uni. But then it gives the Black students an opportunity to get a bit more information. Sometimes, you know, it is sad, because you'll find that there will be students in the class who will be saying, who will say to you, oh, well, yeah, my auntie told me all about this, I understand all. And then you'll see this other Black student saying, well, I don't know anyone who's done law before, or I'm the first person to go to uni in my family, so I don't even know. I just know that I want to be a lawyer. And that's what they keep saying. So using the teaching opportunity to give them extra information about the legal profession is also another way to go. Are there any questions at this point? Just going to check in the chat. You can unmute yourself if you have a question. Okay, no questions. All right, I've just seen that. Okay, thank you. Right. Okay, so moving on. We're all familiar with the different career paths that students can progress onto after a law degree. We know all these because obviously we're law teachers, so we know this. But again, another problem is that some of them don't. And again, when we're looking at Black students who've come from backgrounds where they are where there isn't that much when there aren't many people who actually work in the professional field or professional sector, you'll find that all they know about law is, I want to study a law degree and I want to be a lawyer. Sometimes using opportunities to show them that with a law degree, they can still work in different other sectors helps, because as we all know, once they've got the law degree, if they decide to work in HR for a while, as many of them do, I have many ex-students who after their law degree got a job as a paralegal, or a majority of them would get work in HR. I don't know why HR. And then after a year or two, will then start on the LPC. They'll do their LPC, usually to raise funds. They'll work for a bit, then do their LPC, and then try and get a training contract. So it's sometimes a longer route, but that's what they do. So making our students aware of all the other different roles that they can still get into with their law degree before they qualify is also a way to make sure that they don't start to say, well, it's going to be impossible to get a training contract. Nobody gets a training contract. Well, it is hard to get one, but the fact is you can do other things while you are training and preparing to get a training contract. Or you might even get another job in the public sector or the private sector or in charity and just stay there. And if that's what you enjoy, you can actually just decide that, you know, you don't want to carry on to work as a solicitor or a barrister. So again, this is something to help our young people realize that studying law has a variety of possibilities. The possibilities are endless, and it's not all and not everyone's going to end up in corporate law, or not everyone's going to end up in the local magistrates court or the Crown Court. So I think going down the careers route and making sure that they know is also very important. Okay. Right. So if we talk about the landscape of the legal profession, we know that the main roles in the legal system, legal profession are on the screen as I've put them there. But many students also are not aware of the fact that to become, say, for example, a paralegal, that there are different types of paralegals. So you can be a paralegal assistant, where you've basically not done a law degree. You might just be a graduate from another subject or area, or you might actually just be an A-level student who's finished their A-level as a paralegal assistant. But that to be a paralegal, you have to, in most law firms, you have to have a law degree. Many don't understand about becoming a legal executive and the routes down how to become a legal executive. So through the SILEX and so on. They also don't know the difference between being a legal executive and a legal secretary. Many don't know the difference between being a solicitor and a barrister. And that's when we teach them the legal profession, we tend to try to show them the differences and how to qualify. But I would just like to ask, and I don't know, I think someone's put something in the chat again, let's see. Okay, no questions, that's all. Yeah, I'll just start to ask if you found that your students have been particularly fixated on a particular legal profession. So have you had more students want to be solicitors or barristers? And what are the realistic prospects of the ones who want to be become a barrister compared to their academic achievements? Because that tends to show their lack of knowledge, where you find that you'll find a student who's doing applied law, criminology, and perhaps another BTech who wants to be a barrister. It's not impossible, but then there's a big chasm to kind of jump over to qualify. So my main question really is, what profession do you find that most of your students want to get into? Do they want to be a solicitor or barrister, or even a paralegal? And how realistic are their prospects based on what you know about their grades?
Hi, sorry, my voice is a little bit croaky today. I think I've lost it on the last day of term. So my students understand what a solicitor, what a barrister is, what a paralegal is. In terms of what they would aspire to be, it's normally down the solicitor or barrister route rather than the paralegal or legal exec, which I don't think we really kind of cover in a huge amount of detail on the course. But they understand the kind of premise of what a solicitor and barrister is. In terms of the area, it normally kind of favors to criminal, because that's obviously one of the core areas that we study. The other areas that they think are interesting are usually kind of things like commercial, company, but that's predominantly because that's where the money is based. Mm-hmm. And that's a kind of driver in itself, I suppose. They start to think in the second year a little bit more about the other routes when it comes time to choose whether they're applying for university or going down our tutor pathway of kind of employment and enterprise. But we don't really give a huge amount of information at that point in time in terms of how to kind of maybe tackle that legal exec route or legal secretary route. So that's probably something that we need to do better, certainly in my college.
Okay.
I'm gonna mute myself again now.
Okay, thank you very much, Josh. Thank you. But that's interesting. You know, I said at the start that in my years of teaching, that's the main thing that I've noticed, that sixth forms and colleges do all students actually a disservice, because they don't realize that you know, when you in most schools and sixth forms, if you have students who want to study medicine, you know, they type, at least I've found that they tend to get a bit of extra help, particularly in preparing for their uni applications and so on. But when it comes to law, you know, students are just left to, you know, just apply, it'll be fine and so on. And what then tends to happen is that for some, they'll apply, go do the law degree, but and then nothing ever comes out of it. But for some, and for those who don't go on to qualify as a solicitor or a barrister and so on, it's fine because they probably knew from the get-go that they weren't going to qualify, they just wanted a law degree. But for students who come from backgrounds where nobody actually tells them anything, they're starting from ground zero, so they don't even know anything about it. So to get them to actually go on to qualify is a big problem, which means that schools need to give more information in year 12, from the start of year 12, to keep them on the course, as on the subject, so that they actually do finish their applied law, they finish their A-level law, but also to help them have a head start when they go off to uni. Because I mean, there are, and I'm going to talk about some of the limitations, or the you know, the criticisms about the legal profession and how it feeds back into affecting ethnic minority and Black students. Yeah, so that it's good that your students can tell the difference, but the paralegal route is one that I will talk a bit about later on. That's, we might start to consider, at least at my college, we're trying to encourage our students who tend to do a bit more, that they're doing, say, two BTEC courses or 3 BTEC courses, to consider going down the paralegal route, paralegal apprenticeship route, and from then to try and get a solicitor apprenticeship, and then qualify that way. Because if they go off to uni to study law, chances are that they might already put themselves on a back foot, depending on the university they go, they study at, and so on. And it's just, it just goes on and on. Okay, thanks for that. Does anyone else have anything to add? Nope. Okay. So I won't read all of the list I have on the screen now. I've just changed the slide. And these are some of the problems with qualifying into the legal profession. You know, and these apply to all students. So I think we've talked about the intellectual challenge. And someone's mentioned, well, you mentioned it, didn't you, Josh, about them all liking criminal law because that's what they're familiar with, and then they start to learn about other areas in their second year. Some are aware of the different areas of law, and that's another problem. Some students are not aware of the routes into qualifying. They don't know what it entails. But more worryingly, some teachers aren't aware of those routes as well, particularly when the teacher is not a legal specialist themselves. If they haven't studied law themselves, they might have a very general knowledge, but nothing that will help students to make up their minds what to do and you know, which routes to take. There are cost implications as well. And then many students suffer from the imposter syndrome. Some, it starts really early, and that feeds into the elitist nature of the profession, which we can't deny. There's also a problem with lack of representation, because when students can't see anyone who looks like them when they go off to law open days, or they go for events and so on, then they don't, in some cases, they just give up and say, well, I'm not even going to qualify, and they just give up at that point. And then there's a lack of awareness of schemes to support students as well. So of these problems, which one do you think is your top 3? I think we've identified intellectual challenge as one for many of our students, where they don't realize the amount of work they need to do. So if we go with that one being the first one, any other 2? It's important to, yeah, from induction. Yeah, Tina's just written this. Yes. Yes. Yes, you're quite right. Tina's just said it's so important to ensure that everyone's represented throughout as much as possible, from induction through to the end of the course. You're quite right, because we tend to lose a lot of, as we've said this a number of times, that, you know, with especially with the Black students who usually come in with no knowledge, it's that lack of information that just throws them. You know, they just give up at some point. So, it's intellectually challenging, and Tina says representation. So the lack of representation is an issue. Yeah. Does anyone have any others?
I suppose from my perspective, it's the elitism of the profession, where we're just trying to get the Law Society set up for next year. And one of the things that kind of came out about that was kind of networking. And I asked in the room, as well as sending a survey out, in terms of how many people had contacts in the legal profession, family, friends, and things like this. And it was interesting, kind of that information kind of coming back, and just having a kind of brief look at which students had those contacts. You know, it would be no surprise that it was the more middle class white students who had those contacts. So I suppose that would be something which I think is key for really kind of getting on, you know, at the end of your legal training to them working in.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thank you for that, Josh. Yeah, but you know, the elitist nature of the profession is a big problem, and hopefully the second part of this, where we will see that I have a list of resources, organizations and so on, that actually have, you know, that have different schemes that students can actually apply to be part of. I know that running a law society can be a lot of work, and, you know, well done to you for getting one running, or about to get one running at your school. But you can also tap into the resources that are already there, because ever since Black Lives Matter, many law firms have realized how it's a word, undiverse, how they lack diversity. And as a result, many of them have many schemes. Admittedly, majority of the schemes tend to be focused towards undergraduate students, but many of them have sixth form schemes as well. But because they're always so busy and they don't have time to kind of reach out to the sixth forms, it's our responsibility, or our extra work, to reach out to them. I've found, oh, you won't believe the opportunities that are out there, because the law firms want to work with schools, they want to work with sixth forms, but they don't know what to do. So in many cases where I've connected with a law firm, I'll give you an example. Brown Jacobson, it's a national law firm, but it has a massive office in Birmingham, where I'm based. And I've reached out to one of the partners there through LinkedIn. And she said, oh, yes, we want to work with sixth forms, but we don't, you know, we want to start a reach program. That's what they called it. Mentoring and work experience for sixth formers and so on. And I said, oh, that's great. And I said, so what are you going to do? She was like, oh, you know, we'll just get them in and show them. I was like, well, that's not going to work. They're 16 to 18. And thankfully, she was open to ideas and so on. So we got into a conversation, told her what would help and so on. And then they started the program. And thankfully, because we'd been so instrumental in helping them figure out what they were going to do, when the applications went out to sixth forms in the Birmingham area, I got my students to apply and so on. And I told them, I said, make sure your application is super good and everything, and, you know, read through it and so on. And the first two students who got the mentoring and paid work experience for 2 weeks and 6 months mentoring were from my college, and it went so good. And because, sorry to say this, but I'm not saying they're lazy or anything, but then the second year, they just came back to us and said, oh, do you know what? We'd rather just do it with your students. So next year, just get all your students to apply, and then we'll select two. And so right now we've got that partnership going. So every year we've got two students who will get work experience and mentoring at Brown Jacobson, which is a big deal. So yes, trying to make sure that we get the students to have the connections they need. shouldn't be down to us trying to create schemes within our schools and so on. Some of those schemes already exist, and we just need to know how to tap into them. So yeah, I also see that. Okay, Greg says too, students are unaware of different areas of law. Yeah, of course. They don't. Yeah, it's all criminal law, and then they come up with some random, areas that no one's heard of. 8, lack of representation. 5 is cost implications. Yes, and any resources. Yes, I will go to the resources at some point. Yeah, okay. Okay, thank you, everyone. So we know that the issue with law, this is, just saying the obvious. We know that it is very competitive. We've said that, and we know that, I'm trying to get this out of the way. As we've all identified that there is the lack of representation, they tend not to be able to find work experience, and there is a lot of competition. But we do know that if they do get into a career in law, it will build their confidence. They will learn to engage. It's a fantastic experience. They get to become their own person and, be their best self, as they say. But because of all of this, we just need to do a bit more. Now, I'm like about 5 minutes early. I don't know if you want a 5-minute break, or should we just plow on to looking at all the schemes and organizations that can help us with the students? Let's see, someone's happy to carry on. Okay. All right. Tina's okay. Greg's happy to carry on. Okay. Oh, click the wrong thing. Josh, we're going to assume you're happy. Yeah, you've said so. Okay. All right, let's carry on. Okay. Thanks for that. So, I'm just going to start off by saying, do you have any tips on how to remove the barriers? And then I'll give you all the tips I have and all the organizations, tell you a bit about our organization as well. So do you think, do you have any tips? What do you think? The Law Society is a fantastic one, the one that Josh is planning at his 6th form. Do we have any other tips? What else can we do to remove the barriers we've identified? You can unmute yourself if it's quicker.
From my perspective, I think in terms of the materials, it's just making sure you've got kind of positive cases in there. So I think when you're dealing with this, sometimes you can very much kind of go down the negative routes of what in terms of how people have been deprived and everything else, and you can do that in a number of different ways for different minority groups. But having some kind of positive individuals who have done things, so you don't need to talk about the fact that they are a Black lawyer, but just the fact that they are doing something. So, for instance, the proroguing of Parliament and the case of Gina Miller, obviously bringing that to the forefront. Those kind of cases, I think, work quite well. So we've been trying to do that quite a lot in college, of just having positive role models built into the syllabus.
Okay, that sounds great. Thanks, Josh. I think that really works well. Yeah.
Could I say something as well, Abi?
Yes, please.
I suppose because I'm creating resources at the moment, my own ethnocentrism has been challenged in some ways, because well, I know that examiners often attempt, and we see it in AQA and OCR, we see in their exams, an attempt to make sure that the people who are in the scenarios come from, and we can only tell that because of the name, can't we?
Yeah.
They use different names. But what I find is that a lot of the textbooks, if you look at the illustrations in textbooks, for example, they tend to be white. And I think it's important that potentially, or if we, let's say you're putting a PowerPoint slide together and you Google and you're looking for a piece of clip art and you want electrician, then usually it will be a white male electrician that comes up, and I think we need to question continually ourselves and make sure that what we're presenting to the students looks like the society they're living in. And when you're at a college like your own, where it's 33, 33, 33, then really you should have resources that reflect that completely, so that the student feels immediately that it's about them.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for that. So, I mean, that is a you know, a very valid point, and one that I will take back to Hodder when I give feedback about this session, to say actually we've also had you say to us, Greg, that Greg, sorry, yeah, I got it right. It was Greg, that the resources aren't particularly reflective. Tina, you agree also, and that's true because you know, I'm just thinking back to the AQA textbook. That, you know, and I think perhaps the fear is that, you know, especially when, you know, when you're looking at criminal law, perhaps the problem is they're afraid of using, say, for example, it's a case where, you know, the defendant, they don't want to paint you know, just put a picture there that might reflect someone that, you know, especially when it's art, it's not the real, they're not trying to depict the real people involved, and they're thinking, oh, if we kind of paint that person up as a Black person, that's stereotyping and people aren't going to like that and so on. But there are other ways of doing it, and they should really look to doing that. So I quite agree with you. So it's that's something that can be done to reduce the barriers. I know a few years ago, I had a classroom where I had a huge blank board at the back. So what I did in the summer, because I didn't have anything else to do, was to find pictures of notable ethnic minority lawyers, and had it all printed out, and I put a little note at the bottom to say what they did, how they qualified, and so on. And I just stuck it at the back of the class, and that was great because we had a base room. But at my current college, we teach in different rooms, so that really is not going to help, because, you know, they're in different places and you can't go around sticking your pictures in everybody else's classrooms. So, you know, the resources they use should actually reflect the diversity of the legal profession. But then again, you see, it's a vicious cycle, isn't it? There is no diversity in the legal profession. So even I think the textbooks aren't the writers aren't. It's not so much their fault in that they can't find the people to use. So what we're trying to do by having this session is to start to develop and to encourage a few more people, Black children, to go into law, and hopefully things will get better as the years go by. Yeah, extremely slow in developing diversity. That's the legal profession for you. It is, yeah, Tina, I agree with you. And I think that it's good that it's all come to the forefront now, and everyone's aware of the fact that, you know, there's no point waiting until they graduate from uni before you say, oh, we don't have that many Black law graduates wanting to qualify as solicitors or barristers. Look at them from sixth form, because why are they not doing well at sixth form? Why do they drop law? They start off doing law, but they drop it, or they don't do well. And yeah, that's it. Any other points from anyone? Okay, I'm just going to go on to the next slide. Welcome, Eric. Okay, so myths or fact? This is just, I know we all know the answers to this. Do we need to study law as a first degree? Okay, I'm looking at the chat. No. Okay. But yeah. So yes, you're right, Josh. No, but then many students think that you do. Again, this is the lack of information part of it. So many think, oh, I have to study law so I can become a solicitor or become a barrister. And we need to let them know early enough that, you know, they can study whatever else they want to study, but they will have to do a graduate diploma in law, and the cost implications of that as well, because obviously that's an extra year, and that kind of eats into any kind of extra student finance that they might be entitled to. And they've still got to pay for their SQE later on. Some think you'll spend your life in the library when you're studying a law degree. Do we agree? At times. Online, well, now it's online, yes, because all the libraries and everything are all on Lexis and and Westlaw. So yes, they will spend, especially when it's assessment time. But again, it's kind of giving them that picture, that overall picture. Our time at uni is very different to what they're going to face now. I mean, I graduated from uni in 1998, so I can't even start to tell you how archaic and I'm sure I'm hoping no one's as old as I am, but you know, yeah, we can't, you know, but we have to try and give them a good picture of what to expect. So yes, they will have to study. And I can't remember, I don't know if it was Greg who said it earlier, that many of them don't realize how much work they would have to do. So they don't need to spend their life in the library, but they will spend a lot of time in the library or online. Many people also think that more boys study law than girls. Is that true? No, yeah, that's it. It's actually more girls than, yeah. No, your girls is, yeah, 70%, yes. And, you know, mine I have in my second year, because I teach A2 law, and I've got 6 boys out of 54 students, just 6. So it's not all, yeah, I agree with you. It's not all boys. And actually, even when they graduate from university, the percentage of female law graduates is higher than male law graduates. You'll bag a job at the end of it, no sweat. Now that's a controversial one. Eric, please feel free to, yes, oh, thank you. I was just going to say, feel free to add to the chat. What does it depend on? What do you think? Eric, what does it depend on? I'm guessing you're typing. Yeah. Yeah, contacts and grades, which uni you go to and your final results. Yeah, but are we talking about a law-related job, or because when we talked about, we said that there are other, I'm just going to do a quick go back to that. So can they still get a job in these areas, like in the public sector, private sector, the charity and NGOs? So to be honest, I don't quite think it's all down to contacts and well, it is if you want to get a job in the legal profession, but with your law degree, you can actually, in most cases, is relatively, and determination, yeah, relatively easy to get into these other sectors if that's what they want to do. So I think that the traditional areas, oh yeah, so if you want to be a solicitor or a barrister, you're quite right that it has to be your grades, it has to be your determination and so on. Oh, I'm just going to go back to that slide. Yes, you're quite right. And some say it's too competitive to make friends, so they don't want to go to uni because they think that they're going to spend all their time in the library. Is that the truth? No, yeah, because they have the Law Society, they have all sorts of events going on, and that again is information, giving them information about how life is going to be as a law student. To say you're going to meet loads of people, law firms will come and do events at your uni, they'll have open days at their law firms, and you will find that you will make loads of friends. So a lot of the things that hold back some of our Black students, they won't actually tell us, but it's the kind of things that go on in their heads. It's them thinking, I'm going to be the only one. I won't have any friends. It's just going to be boys. There won't be any girls there. I'm going to live in the library all my time. Or it's pointless. There's too much competition and all those kind of things. These are issues that we have to find a way to address when we're teaching. So without making a song and dance of it and saying, well, these are the myths I want to dispel or whatever. But once we have it at the back of our minds that these are some of the things they're worried about, then we can find ways of making sure that we start to talk about these issues and give them a positive outlook. Someone did say this about being positive about when you're talking about qualifying and so on, so that you don't tell them the doom and gloom, it's hard to get a training contract kind of thing. But infusing as much fact into their learning and understanding of the legal profession from the get-go, from year 12, from when they start with us in September, will probably help to keep many of them on the course, the applied law, the A-level law, and to hopefully inspire them to work hard so that they can go on to study law at uni. Okay, so now to the strategy part. And the first I think I've alluded to throughout this is information. So give as much information as you can. The starting point is, we all know that majority of the Black students we have in our states, sixth forms and colleges will come from socially deprived backgrounds. Will find that the middle class Black students may tend to go to particularly high achieving sixth forms where some of this is already done, or they go to independent schools. But majority will be going to regular schools, but they won't have anyone to inspire them, to give them information. And so that's where they fall by the wayside. So the key fact really is that an average student with decent GCSEs and A-levels can study law and qualify as a legal professional. And by average GCSE, decent GCSE grades, they don't all have to get 9s throughout, and they don't need 3 A stars. A student with 6s and 7s at GCSE and A-levels can study law, and they can qualify as a legal professional. Do we all agree? So a student with BBC can go to university, study law, and become a solicitor. Yeah, do we agree? Absolutely, yeah. Thank you, Tina. The reason I've asked if we all agree, yes, is that I had a conversation with I went to a networking event in Birmingham. Yes, thanks, Eric and Josh. And I was speaking to this partner of a law firm, and I won't say the name of the law firm. And we went with a couple of students because they were launching, again, one of these schemes that they have. He kept on talking about how students had to do incredibly well. And there was a particular student, I just noticed her face just fell. And he was talking about doing incredibly well at GCSEs. He was so out of touch, because I was thinking, well, it's too late to be talking about getting excellent GCSE grades. These are A-level students. So, but he went on and on. And when we left, she said, oh, well, that's the end of that then. I said, why? And she said, well, he was talking about, getting incredibly good grades. I'm sure he's thinking that you will have like 9s. But for starters, he didn't even know what 9s were, this partner, because he was so old. He kept saying, oh, what does a 9 mean? And she was trying to explain that, it was an A star and all that. But I had to go on and explain to her that, look, if you're going to study law, you've got enough grades. If you're doing 3 A-levels, that means your GCSE grades were decent. And if you can get decent A-level grades and study law at university, try and get yourself a solid grade at uni, you can still qualify as a solicitor, even as a barrister. It might just be harder to become a barrister, but you can still do it. And then, we've talked about dispelling any myths that exist, as many as you can as many as you're aware of. And I'm not saying this from a point of view, point of criticism in any way, but it's very hard if you're not a Black student or a Black person to sometimes understand some of the problems or some of the barriers, some of like the ones where we just looked at, where that students have. We you know, you won't know, but as best as you can, any myths that students generally have, consider the fact that your Black students are coming from a point of no information, and that usually helps. Because sometimes we automatically assume, well, you should know that, you know, everybody knows. Well, no, not everybody knows. So once we get to the point where you think they probably don't know anyone who's done this before, so that's why they don't know, or that's probably why they seem a bit worried about what everybody else knows, is not an issue. Also, you know, passion, enthusiasm, dedication, hard work, willingness to learn, to focus, is key. Even from sixth form, they can actually attend law firm open days. They can do different schemes. They can attend events, workshops. There are loads of things online. And if they start to do those things now, they start to write everything down, put it in their UCAS application or their apprenticeship application, then it gives them a head start. What they don't realize is that when they're applying to, especially for the apprenticeship program, everybody's done A-level law or applied law. So saying, oh, I learned about intoxication in applied law, it doesn't set you apart. But what they must do is, because law is so competitive, they need to start chasing those opportunities even now. They also need to know that not everyone's going to work in corporate law. Corporate law is incredibly hard to get into because of the money. But for students who want to practice family law, they want to go into immigration and so on, you know, there are law firms that will give them work experience, because these are usually high street law firms. The opportunities are there, but if they don't look for them, they won't get them. So as I've mentioned, they need to start developing their employability skills from sixth form. They need to start showing that they want to study law and law is really for them. And the opportunities to get to demonstrate that are there. Okay, Josh said they had a local law firm in Brighton and the partner of the family law division was not fussed on degree grades. Yeah, for her, it was exactly the correct attitude. Quite right. Yeah, that's it. And so we need to make sure that our students know this and they're not panicking, especially when they find that people tell them, and they might have been told from GCSEs, oh, law is so hard, you know, are you sure you can do it? It really doesn't matter. As long as they've got decent grades, they can still do it. Okay. Also, so we're still talking about information. Are we aware of all the changes in the qualifying routes in the chat box? Can we? Ish. Okay, Josh says ish. Okay, Eric says no. Okay, Greg says just about. Okay, right. Okay, is Tina still here? Just gonna wait and see if she's. Yeah, she's. Oh, you're here. Are you aware of the changes? Yes, somewhat. Okay, that's good. I mean, so we're all aware, but and to be honest, like some are a lot more complex than others, but some textbooks haven't even changed these routes yet, as I'm sure you're aware. I know the AQA textbook hasn't actually, it doesn't have anything about SQEs and the SQE in it. Neither does the EduCast textbook. A new one's just been published. It was published end of last month, so maybe they've put that the new routes in. I don't know, but we need to be aware so that we can tell our students, give them the correct information. So I think the most popular route is qualifying as a solicitor. It used to be the LPC. Now we know it's called the Solicitor's Qualifying Examination. So they get a law degree. Then they do, it's divided into two. There's SQE1 and SQE2. If they are lucky enough to have a training contract when they graduate, then the law firm may pay for the SQE1 and SQE2. Just like they would for the LPC, and they would have to pass both before starting their training contract. If they don't have a training contract, then they would have to do the SQE 1 and 2 self-funded. What used to be called the training contract is now called the qualifying work experience. But the beauty of that is that you don't necessarily have to do your qualifying work experience in a law firm. There are some other organizations that can now give you qualifying work experience, and you can do it in 4 different places. So that helps students, particularly when they're, you know, to see that they will be able to get the qualifying work experience, which used to be a problem in the past because you would have to have a law firm that would take you on for 2 years. Now you can do 4 seats, if you like, in different places. To qualify as a barrister, the bar professional training course is now called the bar practice course, BPC. So that's not much of a difference. And what used to be called SILEX 1 and SILEX 2 is now called the SILEX professional qualification. So having a bit of an idea of, because they will come and ask you, the ones that are interested will come and say, what's a qualifying work experience? We need to be able to tell them that, well, it's the same as a training contract, but you can do it in more places. And the cost implications of the solicitor's qualifying examination, it's supposed to be cheaper. But another problem that Black students have had, and I don't know if anyone's aware of this, the last 2 years that the SQE has, the results of the SQE, the worst performing group were the Black students. And again, that was purely down to lack of information. Not lack of information that they didn't have the resources that everybody else had, but majority of them assumed that because there was you know, the course was marketed as one where you could study by yourself, study on your own, and you didn't need to go to a training provider, and you didn't even need to have a law degree, that if you studied all the materials you could pass. The more disadvantaged students who maybe didn't have a law degree, but more importantly, couldn't afford to do do training courses with a training provider like University of Law and so on, tended to study by themselves on their own and did the exam and failed. So giving that kind of information even now helps these students to know what they're getting themselves into, and helps them to start to prepare their minds for the expense and the rigor. So hopefully things will improve with the solicitor's qualifying examination. I mean, the results were so shocking that the SRA actually commissioned a review into it. And unfortunately, they came up with some random suggestions about, I think it was about the actual questions. And majority of, I went to an event recently with Birmingham Black lawyers where people were discussing it. And what many of the solicitors were saying was that they've actually missed the points. The point is that if you make it seem like it's an examination, you don't need to go for extra tuition for, or go to a provider, training provider for. Students who already struggle with money are going to try and do it themselves because you've said they can pass it if they do it themselves. But actually, it's just like the LPC. Everybody knows that for the LPC, you need to kind of get some training for it, or some tuition for it. And so us being aware of the qualifying routes really, really matters, because it helps the kids to get their heads around what they're going to need to do in future. Any questions on that? Nope. I think I saw something in the chat. Okay. No questions. Okay. The second strategy is, this is where we get all our resources and so on. What can they do to prepare for a career in law? Get them ready. Get them ready from sixth form. I am incredibly passionate about getting students ready for sixth form, and sorry, not for sixth form, getting them ready for a law degree. And I have so many students who've gone on to qualify as solicitors, and and barristers, and some of them are mentors on my mentoring scheme now, because I've been able to get them, and I've said to them, you know how hard it was for us to get you a mentor, you know how hard it was for you to get your work experience, you need to give back. And many of them willingly sign up. So we need to get them to start volunteering as quickly as possible. So we're looking at our year 12s now, the ones that are starting in year 12. Some of these, I think, is not going to make much of a difference to our year 13s, because when they come back in September, they're going to have UCAS to look at. And they probably won't have extra time to do other extracurricular. But for the year 12s, they need to start volunteering and do it as quickly as possible, because that's going to start to set their applications for the university applications, but particularly the apprenticeship applications is going to set them apart and give them the boost that they need. Black students generally tend not to do much volunteering, again, because it might not be something that anyone else in their family will be involved in. So if nobody's doing it, then you don't get to feel like you should be doing it. Some people see volunteering as more of a middle class kind of activity, but knowing how elitist law is, students need to do certain things that will set them apart and show that they have the right skills, the communication skills, interpersonal skills to exist and work well in a law office, for example, where you have to go to a lot of socials. You must be an incredibly good communicator. You must be someone who's personable and so on. So getting them to start to volunteer as soon as possible is key. The usual area could be the local libraries or job centers, anywhere that a 16, 17-year-old can volunteer. And they don't have to do it for that long. They just need to do it for a few weeks or months. Many of them will say, oh, I did the DOV and so on, but those were very structured. Now that they're thinking of law, they need to think about anywhere they can get wider skills and make sure that they're able to do that so that they can reflect on it on their UCAS application and on their apprenticeship application. Now, this is the document. Now, I don't claim ownership of this document. I'm going to try and open it, see if it opens up on this. It's been, can we still see it? Okay, no, we can't. I'm going to reshare my screen. Just bear with me a moment. Okay. Going to see if it opens up now. Now, this was supposed to be ready for me to open it, but it seems to be. I will copy and put it in the chat. Sorry. So that everyone has access to it, but you will get it from, yeah, there we go. You will get it from Hodder Education. There we go. Okay. So this is everything you need for law and for other subjects. And I've decided to leave everything in. So this was created by somebody else over time, and they kindly shared it with our program, Tyra Lawyer. So we've basically been sharing this with their permission, and I'm happy to share with you all as well. So there are many university-run schemes. Some are targeted to specific courses. So you'll find that there might be, there's one here for medical students. However, quite a lot of these other university schemes have schemes for law, which students should start to look at. So they have master classes, they have all sorts of things going on. Some have summer schemes where students are able to go into the university for a week in the summer. So the current year 12s will be, well, if they're in year 12, they will be doing it this month, next month. So the new year 12 starting in September, if you get them early on to start looking at this, they can apply to go for those events. So many universities have widening participation activities, and these are the summer residentials. Then these are university application programs. Students who come from ethnic minority backgrounds tend to qualify to attend majority of the events you can see on the screen, because most of them are trying to widen participation. So they usually have entry requirements, and you'll find that most of the Black students will be able to get onto this. Now, for work experience and networking, it's advisable to get them to sign up to LinkedIn, but I'm aware of the safeguarding issues with getting students to sign up to a social media platform. So they have to use it incredibly carefully. I'm sure you're aware, well, my college, we're not allowed to connect with students while they're still students. So I don't know what your college, your college might require, but be careful on that side so that you don't get any issues with students and safeguarding and so on. But if they start to sign, if they sign up on LinkedIn, when they start going for events and so on, they can connect with solicitors and barristers that they meet, and they start to develop their professional network. So there's a Black Excellent Network, there's Bright Experience, E4S, Employment for Students, Work Experience, the Student Ladder, Professional Network for Young People, Optree. Optree is super. Is anyone familiar with Optree? No? Okay. Then there's Upreach. Upreach is, oh yeah, someone's said no. Oh, Optree is fantastic. It has opportunities, open days, and so on. If you go onto it, you'll find that there will always be something going on, although many of the events are kind of towards the London area. But if you can get your students to attend, see if I can open it up. No, it's not going to send me there. Okay, can you see it? So if you go on to Optree, you can get your students to sign up here. You can look at it yourself, Optree for schools and so on. And if you narrow it down to law, you will find all the legal events going on for young students. And this is for 14 to 18-year-olds. Optree on the, Upreach on the other hand, is for when they go off to uni. So Upreach is for undergrads, and that's brilliant as well. I know so many students who've been able to sign up to Upreach. They've gone for work, open days and so on, and a few of them have actually got training contracts because of their participation on the Upreach program. There's Springboard, Prospect, and so on. And then super curriculars, which I will come up and talk about. These are all the links to the super curriculars. These are extra things that students do apart from extracurriculars that the top universities look for. Again, our Black students will usually not be aware of these. And if your school's got a really good tutorial program, they might mention some, but they won't be law specific. So these are, the MOOCs are very law specific. And I'll show you when I go back to the PowerPoints, the law specific ones, but you've got a range over there. And then there's links for personal statements, and then links for YouTubers, but these are mainly for politics, philosophy, and economics. And these are for students who might not want to do law as their first degree, but want to do one of these, PPE, and then do law later on. Okay, so you'll get this, and as I said, I'm going to copy and paste that and put the link into the chat so that you can have a look before you get it sent to you by, pardon me, I'm just trying to share the screen again. Okay, oh, there's a comment here. Okay, you're welcome, Tina. Okay, so I've talked about what's happening. Okay. So for the work experience, I've shown you all the links that you can look at. Again, they need to get work experience. They think it's impossible to, but if they use those links, they will have events to attend and so on. They can do the easy thing, which many law students do, which is they go onto the Law Society website, narrow it down to the area that they live, and it gives them a list of all the solicitors in that area. Now, what that does is that even where there's a law firm with just 2 lawyers down the road, and they don't have a big signboard telling you that there's a there's a little law firm there, it comes up on the Law Society website. So students can actually just find out the address. It gives them the names of the solicitors there, and that's where they can send their email or find their phone number on the internet, ring them, and basically look for work experience. My students do it all the time. And there was one, it was on his second try that he got a law firm, and he's just finished. He did it, last week. He had the whole of last week, and he did work experience with a law firm in Birmingham, and that's how he found it. So many think that they have to go to the ones that they see, but that trick is a fantastic one, because it's the small law firms that are usually willing to take young students on for work experience. I know you may have to do paperwork with safeguarding at your 6th form, but if the student finds the work experience themselves, my understanding is that you don't have to do the paperwork for safeguarding, because they've done it themselves. If you find it for them, then you're the one sending them out, so you have to do all the paperwork. So it's easier to just get them to do it. It's as simple as doing it as part of a class activity. Get the Law Society website, and then just try different postcodes, show them the list of all the solicitors, and say, you know what, go for it. Just start looking for their details, start emailing, start phoning, and they will find work experience. It could be 1 day, it could be 2 days, it could be a week. And that goes a long way. So I think I've gone through all this in the document I showed just now. With the supracurricular activities, this is again something that sets students apart. And we know that these are things that students can do to extend and deepen their knowledge of the curriculum. Easy ones are like reading books and magazines. Now, if they want to study law, they should be doing this. But, you know, we know they're Gen Z. They're lazy. Well, sorry, I shouldn't say that, but we kind of know they are. That's just me trying to be funny. But some of the things that they can do to demonstrate their deeper understanding of the curriculum is things like listening to podcasts. They have their headphones on all the time, so they might as well do something useful. So there's the Law in Action podcast they can listen to. It's not long. They can listen to the Guardian podcast. They can look at BBC News stories that have to do with law. They can read The Secret Barrister, which many of them absolutely love. And they also know where to find The Secret Barrister for free online. So they don't even have to buy it. Honestly, the kids, what they get up to. Not that we're encouraging them, but these are things that they can do anyway. They can make notes of the discussions they've listened to and so on, and reference these in their UCAS application or their apprenticeship application. So it shows a deeper understanding of the law. Again, I know I said this once, I'll say it again. We remember that with our Black students, they usually don't have anyone else to tell them about these things, because they, in many cases, don't know anyone who studied law or is studying law or is practicing law. So these are the things that we can do early on to encourage them. Oh, how Westminster, oh, that's good, works by Ian Dunt. Okay, thank you. I'm going to add that to my list of supracurricular things for them to do. Is it a book or is it a podcast, Josh?
It's both a book and you can get it on Audible as well.
Okay.
So it's good for both law and politics students, I found, and it's quite detailed. And as you said, in terms of them listening to it rather than having to read it, it gives quite a kind of detailed approach, which I think is quite interesting. Kind of sets out the layers, and I think that's quite relevant, particularly with what we're talking about at the moment in terms of access to areas. So yeah, I definitely recommend it.
Okay, that's good. Thank you. I'll add that to my next presentation. And that's good. You know, it's things like that if we ask them to do the, the really boring stuff like getting a book and reading it, not many of them will do that. But if we get them to listen to podcasts and sorry, someone. Okay, Tina's just said thank you. Yes, and we ask them to do things that they would normally do anyway. They're already starting to develop a deeper understanding of the law, and they're already developing their UCAS application so that it stands out, so they can aspire to go to dare I say better universities. Not all universities are good, but red brick universities, and also for those who want to get an apprenticeship, they can submit applications that will make it past the first hurdle, because we know how competitive legal apprenticeships are. Other apprenticeships I don't know, but legal apprenticeships, the selection process is just as bad as looking for or trying to get a training contract. But again, many people don't know this. Many students think that if they don't do well in their A levels, they'll get an apprenticeship. Well, not in law, they won't, but they don't know this. So with mentoring, this is something else that is available out there. Many law firms are starting to offer mentoring programs because they realize how important it is for young students, particularly students from ethnic minority backgrounds, to see people like them who are doing what they want to do. So the most famous of the mentoring programs, or the biggest one, is Grow Mentoring. There are other mentoring programs, but very few are actually designed to meet the needs of 16 to 18-year-olds. My program, Tyra Law Mentoring, we provide mentoring for 16 to 18-year-olds in the Birmingham and Black Country areas. And it's done so well that we've now partnered with Birmingham Black Solicitor, Black lawyers, and we now provide mentoring for undergrads in the Birmingham and Black Country areas. And it's fantastic because, again, as I said, many law firms want to help, but they just don't know what to do. I've mentioned the Brown Jacobson mentoring. There's also a mentoring program by Mills and Reeve. Octree also has mentoring programs there. The Crown Prosecution Service, not quite mentoring, but they provide work experience programs for students, and you can do it as a group. I've just taken 20 students to the Crown Prosecution Service, the West Midlands Crown Prosecution Service, and they had work experience, and some of them were able to get mentors by trying to network or networking successfully with some of the Crown prosecutors who have asked them to keep in touch, and they can ask questions and so on. That is informal mentoring, but it is possible to get it that way as well. Sorry, someone's just put something in the chat. Yeah, students really enjoy the CPS work experience. They really do. And again, these are things that we can put on for our students. It depends. I know that the CPS will do the work experience online for most organizations, but we've, again, through networking, been able to get the West Midlands Crown Prosecution Service to actually allow us to come into their offices, and our kids absolutely love it. You're right, Tina. It's a great opportunity for them. There's also something called marshalling in courts, available in Crown Courts. I haven't been able to locate the website address for that, but excuse me, you can also get your students to participate in that as well. I recognize that a lot of this information will apply to all our students anyway, but since our main aim is to try and keep the Black students on, to keep them on to go and study law at uni and so on, it's particularly more important that they get this information, because if we don't give it to them, chances are they won't get the information from anywhere else. How good are we with apprenticeships? Because this is another thing that Black students tend to want to do, because sometimes they've been told university is too expensive, it's going to take too long, and so on and so forth. So they always think that the legal apprenticeship is a good alternative. Excuse me. I would like to know about apprenticeship. Yeah, okay, if possible. Okay, Josh. Anybody else? Okay. So I'm guessing everybody else would also like to know a bit about apprenticeships. Sorry, if you do know about legal apprenticeships, I'm going to talk about it a bit. Greg, okay, yeah. Okay.
I suppose, sorry, what I'd love to know is the different types of apprenticeships. So, for instance, the degree apprenticeship against, say, an apprenticeship where you're going in and you're maybe working your way up from a legal exec. So, I'm still a little bit unsure in terms of those slightly different routes and how to advise my students around that.
Okay, excellent. Because I've got a slide that does exactly that in a nutshell. So, there are two routes. For our 16 to 18-year-olds, the key things they need to know are these. First of all, there's a paralegal apprenticeship. Now, the paralegal apprenticeship is a level 3 apprenticeship. And I'm sure you, well, the first time I learned about it, the first thing I said was, I don't think that's a good idea. They've already done a level 3 course. If they finished their 2 years of A-levels or A-level and BTEC, they've done a level 3. So why are they doing another level 3? But I know from experience that the SILEX CPQ qualification that they gain is actually pitched at level 3/level 4. So actually, it is right that they do their A-levels first and then apply to do a paralegal apprenticeship. So once they've done this for 2 years, they become a qualified paralegal. And they can get a job as a paralegal, so they can actually, you know, look online and find a job and work as a paralegal if that's what they want to do. However, if they want to become a solicitor, then they can go on to do a solicitor apprenticeship, which is on this screen. So the solicitor apprenticeship lasts for 6 years, but if you've already done the 2 years of paralegal apprenticeship, then your solicitor apprenticeship will be 4 years. So you just join in year 3, so to speak. This is a level 7 apprenticeship. And while you're doing this, you will be doing a law degree and you will be gaining an SRE qualification as well, which is obviously your solicitor qualification. So when our students apply to a solicitor apprenticeship from sixth form, some of them, as I mentioned, some of them think it's an easier option. Well, it's not, because the students go through a rigorous selection process, which is kind of the same as what is used to select students to be awarded a training contract. So there will be a normal application form online with some 250-word paragraphs, why law, why this law firm, and so on. Then if they get through that stage, they might be asked to complete a Watson-Glaser test, which is a psychometric test they'll do online, which they are horrible. You see, this is unfair on sixth formers, because how on earth will they have practiced and will they even know how to approach a psychometric test? But anyway, they have to do that. If they score high enough, then they might be invited to do a video interview. Then if they do well on that video interview, then they will be invited to an assessment center. And then if they do well on the assessment center, then they have a final face-to-face interview, and then they get the solicitor apprenticeship, which is why it's a nightmare for sixth formers to get to achieve to get a solicitor apprenticeship. The problem with it as well is sometimes they are competing with people who've done the paralegal apprenticeship, have worked in industry as a paralegal for a few years, who have a lot more experience and a lot more mature. And we've got our 16 to 18-year-olds trying to get a solicitor apprenticeship as well. It's not impossible. I'm sorry. I actually have a mentor in our program who is a mentor for Evershed Sutherland. And she got a solicitor apprenticeship after her year 13. But she was super, super clever. She had her A-level results. I think she had an A-star, A-star, A, and GCSEs was pretty much 9 parallel. So these are the things that our students don't understand. And sometimes they put all their energies into, I'm going to get a solicitor apprenticeship and so on. It is incredibly hard. They're also not very common yet, particularly with the big law firms. Only recently, the big law firms, the commercial law firms in London, they've only just created 50 apprenticeship spaces across all, and these are law firms where sometimes, for say, for example, Freshfields has over 7,000 lawyers, and they're just creating maybe 1 or 2 apprenticeship spaces. So this tells us that it is an incredibly hard route. Smaller law firms, high street law firms, obviously not so hard to get into, but they do have those stringent selection processes as well. So sometimes it might be better for our students to consider the paralegal apprenticeship route. So once they've finished the paralegal apprenticeship and they've kind of sold themselves to that law firm, if the law firm also offers a solicitor apprenticeship, it's easier to then get a solicitor apprenticeship in that same law firm, or maybe in another one. But that's not to say that students can't apply for a solicitor apprenticeship, but we also need to inform them to consider the paralegal apprenticeship route and tell them what it entails. Again, the selection process, they don't have as many stages as the solicitor apprenticeship, but they will still need to brush up on their interview skills. They might have a video interview. Not many will get them to do the Watson Glaser, but for the solicitor apprenticeship, they will do all of those. Has that been of any use, or does anyone want to know any more about it? Great. Okay. Right. Okay. So just pros and cons of the routes. We know, yeah, you're going to get the slide tomorrow. You are. Yeah. You will get it. We know that the apprenticeship route is great because, you know, everything's paid for. You tend to start working in a law firm much earlier than your colleagues who go through the university route. You start 4 years before them, and you get to pick the, you know, whatever you're learning at uni. Because what happens with the solicitor apprenticeship is you do 4 days in the law firm, 1 day at uni, and the learning is online. And you can always ask your colleagues at work for information. They can teach you law because they practice it, don't they? The downsides are that you don't have the same holidays as your uni students. My son's is at uni now, and he's been home since the second week of June, although he's on he's doing an internship now, but he's got an incredibly long summer break. But when you're working as an apprentice, you only get whatever your law firm gives you, so maybe 20 days. The application process is a nightmare. Schools and sixth forms are not aware of it. It's one of the things we address on the Tyra Lawyer program, because we have workshops for UCAT application and for apprenticeship applications as well. So we get students to attend those online workshops, and we go through all the the stages and teach them what to do and so on. And the legal apprenticeship is a big commitment. It's a huge commitment, because you're going to, if you're doing the solicitor apprenticeship route, it's 6 years in a law firm. And so you have to be focused to make sure that you can actually make it work. Okay. And finally, syllabus links. I've already mentioned this, that we should consider teaching legal personnel topic a bit early in the year. And it's a perfect opportunity to keep the students' interest, give them all the information they need. Also, to help students who are interested in a career in law to complete a virtual work experience first before they start looking for the supercurricular activities or in-person work experience. The easiest way to get a virtual work experience is to go on Forage. And I don't know if anyone's familiar with Forage. It's not on that list, so I'm just going to write it here. It's called Forage, and it's in the chat. And there's a Whitekin case work experience program. There is one by Pin St. Masons. There's this one that's targeted at 16 to 18-year-olds on Pin St. Masons. It looks fantastic on UCAS applications and apprenticeship applications. So get them to, they can do that on their own. They sign up to Forage, get on that work experience. It takes about 5 to 6 hours, and they get a little certificate at the end of it. and they could put that on their CVs, and then they can start looking for other in-person work experience and law firm open days and mentoring. So whenever they're trying to sell themselves as students interested in law, it looks really good that they've actually done some kind of work experience, and it doesn't cost much. It doesn't cost anything. Also, to get lawyers from ethnic minority backgrounds to do virtual law workshops. Now, I was going to put a list of local ethnic minority law groups, but I wasn't sure where everyone else was going to be logging on from. So in Birmingham, for example, we've got one called Birmingham Black Lawyers. We've also got I think it's called the Sikh Lawyers Association for the West Midlands. And what you'll find is that many of these, if you're on LinkedIn, you can actually find many of these minority law groups on LinkedIn. And if you message them and say, we'd like someone to come talk to our students about, if they've done offenses against a person, and someone, anyone who practices criminal law or murder, or any of the topics, the students will be interested in, they jump at the opportunity, because again, as I said, most of them want to help, but they don't know how to, and they don't even have the time to chase us teachers in sixth form. So if we're willing to do the extra, we will find them and they will come. So if you look for the ones in your area, in your local area, and just, find your ethnic minority law groups, they will send someone to come. And you can even do it virtually. If it's going to be too much hassle getting all the students in a hall or whatever, you can do it online, and it might be a 30-minute session, but this is about the visibility, getting them to see someone who's like them, who's already doing what they want to do. Finally, you can partner with local law firms, as I've said, or universities. We've been able to partner with the University of Law, and if you have a local University of Law close to you, it doesn't even have to be that close, because although we live in Birmingham and there's a University of Law in Birmingham, I know that they partner with sixth forms outside the Birmingham area. So they all have a geographical area they cover. And if you reach out to them and say that you want them to come give talks to your students, they will come. And they are very hot on diversity as well. So if you ask for specific lawyers from specific backgrounds, they will send them. It also helps them because they're trying to advertise their university, and so that students can apply and do their undergrad with them. So they will send people to you if you need them. And that is my part of it. I know we've had a lot of Q&A as we've progressed, but I'll be happy to take any questions at this point. Okay.
I just want to say thanks so much for all the information. It's been really, really useful. And I'm looking forward to just having a look through the links in my own time over the summer to see what we can use, and particularly to see if I can use some of this stuff and kind of engage the law firm, the Law Society with it to really kind of get them to take ownership of it once I've kind of gone through and found the kind of key things I think will work for our college. So thank you very much.
No, thank you. That's good, excellent feedback. Thank you for that. And I think, getting the students to kind of take ownership of some of the work will help, because I know our workload is just horrendous, but, making sure that they start to learn to look for the information as well will also help them to see the importance of it, because we're doing the best we can. You've taken time out to attend this to learn a bit more about things to help them. So let's hope that the little we're doing will start to make a difference if we start to keep them on in our schools and sixth forms, and hopefully they'll start to perform a bit better, trying to plug all the gaps of information that they don't have, because the key thing really is that lack of information, all sorts of ideas that nobody answers, or questions that nobody answers, that seems to be holding them back in so many ways. Yeah. So thanks for that. Anybody else? Oh, Tina, thank you. Okay. Greg, are you still there?
I am, Abby, and I just wanted to say as well, thank you very much for today. It's been very insightful. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for your feedback. Okay, I'm going to put our the website address for our organization, the mentoring program. I'm just going to put it in the chat now. And if you have any questions, feel free to email me. Although we only service the Birmingham and Black Country areas because, you know, I work full time and this is something that I just do on the side, running the mentoring scheme. And now that we have undergraduates, it's really expanding. But the best part is we're going for a ball in 2 weeks. I can't wait for that one. So we're all going to dress up and everything with all the mentees and the mentors. But if you have any questions, or if you just want me to add you to our mailing list, because when we become aware of events and stuff, we tend to email everybody on the mailing list to say this is happening online, or this is a workshop is taking place there, and so on. And you can pass it on to your students because they can attend those. It's just that they can't be part of the program except they live in a certain geographical area. So I've put the email address there. You can also find us on LinkedIn called The Tyra Lawyer, or you can connect with me directly on LinkedIn as well. So I've got my own private page on LinkedIn, and then we've got the Tyra Lawyer one on LinkedIn as well. Thank you so much for taking, for giving two hours of your afternoon, and all the best with your students. Have a lovely summer, and yeah. Do keep in touch. Thank you.
Thanks, Abby. That's amazing. And just a thank you to everyone for coming. And a quick reminder that the recording will be emailed to you tomorrow, along with any other materials and a link to a feedback survey. I have just posted that survey link into the chat box, and we would really appreciate if you could take some time to give us some feedback. Thanks for your time and hope to see you again soon. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye. Bye.